Arsenal didn't lose this Champions League final because PSG suddenly found a way to break them down. In fact, for most of the match, PSG looked exactly like the team I've been describing for more than a year now. A team that struggles badly against a compact defensive block. The reason Arsenal lost wasn't the shape. It wasn't the low block. It wasn't even the penalty shootout. Arsenal lost because they stopped carrying any meaningful counter-attacking threat, allowed pressure to build for over an hour, and eventually paid the price for it. And the frustrating thing is that this was entirely predictable. Before kickoff, when I saw the lineup, I actually thought Arteta had got it right. Havertz, Saka and Trossard up front told me Arsenal weren't planning to spend 90 minutes sitting on the edge of their own box playing pure counter-attacking football. If that had been the plan, Martinelli would probably have started. Instead, what Arsenal looked set up to play was what I always call finals mode. Not full possession football, not full counter-attacking football, something in between. Stay compact, don't press aggressively. Control possession when possible, defend when necessary. Force PSG to attack a settled defensive structure. I've been saying this for over a year now. Against PSG, the worst thing you can do is press recklessly. PSG are most dangerous when you give them space, when you leave gaps, when you turn the game into a transition battle. Against a compact defensive block, they're a very different team. They don't have a dominant target man. They aren't particularly dangerous from crosses. They don't have many natural solutions against a disciplined low block. That's why Arsenal's original game plan made perfect sense. Then came the early goal. And ironically, that was where the problems started. The moment Arsenal scored, I immediately thought back to the Euro 2020 final. England scored early against Italy. Everyone thought it was the perfect start, but after that, England gradually retreated deeper and deeper, stopped carrying much attacking threat, and spent the rest of the game absorbing pressure. That's exactly what I was worried about here. Scoring early isn't always a blessing. Sometimes it becomes a trap, because once you start protecting a lead instead of managing a match, your mentality changes, and that's what happened to Arsenal. Now let me be clear, the issue wasn't sitting deep. I've been advocating that approach against PSG for ages. The issue was sitting deep without a counter-attack. There's a massive difference. A proper counter-attacking side doesn't just defend, it makes the opponent afraid to attack. Every time the opposition commits bodies forward, they know they could get punished. That fear creates balance. Arsenal never created that fear. As the game went on, PSG became more and more comfortable pushing numbers forward. Not because they had suddenly discovered some brilliant tactical solution. For long stretches, they looked completely lost against Arsenal's defensive shape. I was saying during the live stream that PSG were overcomplicating everything. Forget trying to create the perfect move. Forget trying to break Arsenal down with elaborate combinations. Just drive through the middle, force direct runs, force chaos, force contact. Because if PSG were going to get back into this game, it wasn't going to be through brilliant attacking football. It was going to be through a mistake or a penalty. Before the match, I had already identified two Arsenal players as the most likely to be exposed if Arsenal spent the entire night defending: Lewis Skelly and Mosquera. Not because they're bad players, because they were the players most likely to find themselves under relentless pressure. And that's the key point. Managers don't just select players. Managers are supposed to protect players. You don't judge a defender purely on whether he eventually makes a mistake. You judge the tactical system on whether it keeps putting that defender in situations where mistakes become more likely. The longer Arsenal defended, the more likely an error became. That's why I think too many people are focusing on the penalty incident itself. The Mosquera penalty wasn't the root cause, it was the consequence. The root cause was that Arsenal spent too much of the match defending without offering enough threat in the opposite direction. And this is where my biggest criticism of Arteta comes in. Around the 30-minute mark, I was already thinking about substitutions. Saka looked exhausted. His touches were getting heavier. He was struggling to retain possession. Ødegaard wasn't looking comfortable either. The warning signs were there. The question wasn't whether changes were needed. The question was how long Arsenal could afford to wait. For me, Martinelli and Eze were the obvious solutions, not necessarily because they're better players, but because they offered exactly what Arsenal were missing. Pace, ball carrying, transition threat, the ability to move the team 30 or 40 meters further up the pitch, the ability to give the defense a breather. Madueke could wait, Martinelli and Eze couldn't. Arteta eventually made changes, but for me they came too late. And the frustrating thing is that once those changes arrived, Arsenal immediately looked more dangerous, they looked more capable of escaping pressure, they looked more capable of holding the ball, they looked more capable of threatening PSG in transition, which only reinforced the obvious question: why did it take so long? Now, to be fair, I understand some of Arteta's decisions. I understand why Timber didn't start. I understand why Mosquera started. I understand why Madueke wasn't the first substitution. Those aren't my complaints. My complaint is adaptation, because once it became obvious Arsenal couldn't maintain the possession balance they originally wanted, the response should have been immediate. If you can't keep the ball, you need runners. If you can't control territory, you need transition threat. If you can't move the game away from your own penalty area, eventually you're inviting trouble. And Arsenal kept inviting trouble. Eventually they paid for it. As for the penalty shootout, people will talk about Gabriel missing, people will talk about Eze missing, people will talk about the penalty order, people will talk about Raya. Those discussions are fine, but for me, the shootout wasn't the story of the final. The story of the final happened long before the penalties started. The shootout simply completed what the previous 90 minutes had been building towards. And despite all of this, I'm not here to say Arteta is a bad manager. Far from it. Getting a Premier League club to a Champions League final is incredibly difficult. He's still one of the best young managers in Europe. He deserves enormous credit for the progress Arsenal have made. But that's exactly why this lesson matters, because this isn't the first time we've seen something similar. The League Cup final against Manchester City carried many of the same warning signs: defending deeper, losing attacking threat, allowing pressure to build, eventually conceding. The lesson is actually very simple. A low block is not enough. A counter-attacking system requires the counter-attack. Without that second part, you're not playing counter-attacking football. You're simply defending and hoping. And at the highest level of football, hope is not a strategy. As for next season, Arsenal still need another winger, but not just another explosive dribbler. The reason Trossard keeps getting picked isn't simply because Arteta likes him. It's because Trossard offers qualities that are very difficult to find in one player. He helps Arsenal keep possession. He contributes defensively. He understands how to control the tempo of a match. Martinelli gives you pace and directness. Trossard gives you control. Arteta ultimately wants both. And players who can provide both aren't easy to find. Personally, I'd still lean towards buying younger rather than older, even if that means waiting for the finished product. Long-term squad building matters, but honestly, that's a discussion for another day. The bigger lesson from this final is much simpler. For most of the night, PSG looked exactly like the team I've been describing for over a year. Uncomfortable, predictable, short of solutions against a compact defense. The blueprint worked, the setup worked, the shape worked. What failed was Arsenal's ability to adapt once the game started moving away from the original plan. That's why I don't look at this final and think Arsenal were outclassed. I look at this final and think Arsenal let one get away. And that's probably the most painful type of defeat, because if PSG had completely dominated the match, the lesson would be obvious. Instead, Arsenal proved they had the right idea. They just didn't react quickly enough when the game started slipping away. Arteta remains one of the best young managers in Europe, and I'll continue to back him. But if he wants to reach the level of the very greatest managers, this is the lesson he has to remember. If you're going to sit deep, you must carry a threat. If you're going to defend, you must give the opponent something to fear. Because the moment you stop attacking entirely, you're no longer managing the game. You're surviving it. And eventually survival football catches up with you. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you agree that Arsenal's biggest mistake was abandoning their counter-attacking threat? Or do you think the match was decided elsewhere? If you enjoyed this analysis, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications for more in-depth football breakdowns throughout the season. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.